Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Turtle Island News with Tracey Kennedy, live on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Wolfspirit Radio, and turtleislandnews.info. Later on, we will be replayed by thesechangingtimes.ning. I want to welcome everyone. I will tell you, on Monday just passed, we did kind of a side note to the themes that we've been talking about in the Matrix, the code to the Matrix. What I talked about was the Nephilim agenda and the Dark Knight Rising, all of these things, and what's been going on in the last couple days, where, I was the only one really to freak out with the Iranian ships that are now just outside U.S. borders. We've heard of EMP attacks that are possible right now, and this could be coincidence. Sinkholes, again, are showing up all over the world. They show up in cities and in the country, in regions that allow fracking, but also many places where there is no fracking whatsoever. They appear when the ground is saturated with rain, just as they show up when it is completely dry, like your West Coast and the steered storms that are going on there. I think at this point that they are probably a result of an infinitesimal but statistically significant slowdown in the rotation of the planet, brought on by solar system-wide changes, combined with giant fissures opening up all over the world again, an increase in the number of strong earthquakes, especially in the last 2 decades, a weakened planetary magnetic shield, and a lower, cooler upper atmosphere. It's clear that the sinkholes are yet another sign of our times and the changing therein. We will do probably our last part today, the Code of the Matrix. But as I've been looking at the events that have happened, when we talked about the Super Bowl and the media coverage, I think we need to go over that before we go on. I've been kind of thinking about the movie Rosemary's Baby. I know there's been a couple remakes of it, but not as good as the first one. Now, if you hold this in mind, and we will probably talk in depth about this movie at a later date, just keep it in mind, because it can be seen as nothing more than a well-crafted movie that plays on timeless and archetypal fear of the devil. However, when you look at the movie's precise timing in American history and the incredible series of events that followed its release, the movie becomes a pivotal work, symbolizing important cultural shifts across the planet, but especially in American life. The same way Rosemary discovers the workings of an international witch coven, American society is discovering, and discovered then, a darker side to its entertainment business. Its internal politics, mind control slaves are unleashed in the public. Shocking mega rituals occurred. Pop culture becomes a celebration of depravity. This era trailblazed the way for today's Illuminati agenda in all of our popular culture. With the silent consent of the public's indifference, today's cultural industry still hard at work, molding young minds for a new eon. Same mind control that was used to kill Sharon Tate and John Lennon has now become a fun way to spice up a music video. The controversies of the past are still echoed today. Should we be surprised to see today's latest Illuminati star, Nicki Minaj, channeling another persona called Roman Zolanski? That being said, it would be far too simplistic to blame Satan for everything that has happened. This, in fact, is a mythical creature used to be our archetypal bad guy. In fact, the puppeteers would love to see a scared and confused population blaming everything on some non-human scapegoat. releasing actual men and women from the accountability of their own actions. Even LaVey's Church of Satan is a Hollywood-style theatrical theater compared to the real actors on this world stage. All of the secret cabals evolving at higher echelons of society are the true puppeteers here, and they avoid media attention. The ones we know about are not the ones in control. Now, by distorting and corrupting ancient esoteric teachings to fit their needs, the rulers have given themselves loose moral code to justify their actions. They have usurped all true science, which was inspired by the laws of nature, to create a toxic byproduct, serving only power and greed. The masses, deemed profane and unworthy of the truth, are still bewildered spectators at a sick puppet show, not even realizing for the most part that we are watching puppets only. For this reason, it is important to lift the curtain and see what is happening behind the scenes. Once we truly see these sick puppeteers pulling the strings, we will hopefully snap out of our hypnotic state and walk out of the show. This needs to be done before anything can be stopped. We are seeing a whole play of light versus dark, darkness versus light, of course skewed in a way that they want us to see. The agenda of sexual misconduct, fallen angels, Noah's Ark, and the rainbow. I will continue with this as I did on Monday. Now, if you missed that part, you can see it or listen to it, wolfspiritradio.com in the archives, and it's under Trace Elements, I think. So, going back a little bit, February 7th, 2014, Google Doodle supports the LGBT community with another rainbow flag and Olympic charter, criticizing Putin and his anti-gay stand, which is actually a lie. What Putin said is he does not want gay agenda taught in his schools. Nor do I. I don't think children should be learning sexuality in the schools whatsoever. Now, February 8th, 2014, the very next day after the little rainbow friggin' thing on Google, the Olympic Games started and something strange occurred. The opening scene, which was very beautiful, and it was kind of fireworks and lighting in the sky. Well, the last one didn't open. It looked like 4 rings and then a lotus flower. The significance of this? It's been talked about a lot of ways, but if you notice that the ring didn't light up, the one that didn't light up, it looked like a lotus flower, and you can see lots of pictures of this online too. Now, remember I told you that Satan worshipper Madame Blavatsky used lotus flower quite a bit and wrote about it in all of her Theosophical societies and her magazines. She used this a lot. Also, Egyptian god Ra, Horus, first appeared resting on a lotus flower. Lotus is used in a lot of different kind of spiritualities. Now, if you remember the eye goat, if you guys heard that, and I'll talk about it again. The eye goat, which is a very, very strange little, supposedly children's book. There was another lotus flower opening up, and it was sitting on a checkerboard floor, symbolic of Lucifer and the Antichrist together. And it kind of emerged out of an apple in that one. But wait, there's something even more significant about the Olympic rings not lighting up, that one in particular. The ring that did not open up was in the position of the red ring. Prior to 1951, the official Olympic handbook stated that each color responded or corresponded to a particular continent on the planet, of course. So, different colors. The blue was for Europe, yellow for Asia, black for Africa, green for Australia and Oceania. Red was for America. All of the north, all of the south, as one entire continent, all of Turtle Island. As we talked about before, this red theme has been played a lot in the media lately. I think specifically what it is telling you is that your days are numbered. It signifies that America will be destroyed. Antichrist will rise. From that new destruction will become a leader of the new world order. Do I think it's Obama? I don't know. He's just a puppet. Who they will pick to play this leading role in World Ending Part 2, I'm not sure yet. If we go back, though, we have seen many pictures and symbolism of America ending. The strange thing that no one talked about Iran. On February 9th, 2014, interestingly enough, Iran claims that they are sending warships to America's maritime borders. This has been briefly talked about in all the news. CNN, all the regular guys, and they're laughing at it like it's funny. Maybe we're going to send out a few Coast Guards just to take a look. Well, it's not funny. They have cache technology. You can go all over the net right now and think and find out that not only do they have cache technology, they have EMP pulse waves, and strangely enough, America is testing some odd things. I think we all can understand that weather is being manipulated here. It doesn't surprise me that the west coast of the United States is having a drought, where Canada and the east coast, well, kind of in the middle, are having a huge amount of cold and rain. They did something, because you see all of these storms moving in from the Pacific, the islands of Japan and stuff, and almost being lifted up into the air and then dropped down, as if they're trying to steer the radiation that's incoming. Now, if you remember scriptures that we've talked about, Jude, for instance, he equates homosexuality with Sodom and Gomorrah and various other sexual misconducts with the misconduct of the fallen angels in Genesis 6:4. This may seem strange, but why would all nations of the world have some sort of genetic mutation image, like half man, half beast kind of images which go all over the world? What it says in the Bible is man, and as we said before, when they say man, they're not talking about human beings, they're talking about otherworldly beings, came down and had strange flesh. So not only us, it sounded like they were either genetically experimenting or actually having sex with us and other things here. What we do know, because this story is also one of the stories that is all over the world, the judgment poured out of that city, and the world, as a consequence, is still the promotion of these alternative lifestyles. And alternative, we've just heard a couple months ago that pedophilia is supposed to be looked at as we should look at homosexuality, that it's okay. It's just a lifestyle choice. It is not. And again, I am not gay bashing here, but there seems to be a push for the homosexual agenda. And again, it is led by the chief commander himself. Interestingly enough, was that mentioned? We can hear Obama saying, it must be equal for all people, and I do believe it should be equal for all people, but the pushing of it seems strange. The propaganda of it, the Skittles, the Taste the Rainbow. February 9, 2014, feds expand legal benefits and services for same-sex marriages. The expansion will include 34 states where same-sex marriages are now illegal. Well, were up until the 9th. But this Prime Commander made me think of it when I listened to Obama's speech again. There's quite a few things. And February 10th, 2014, CNN, ESPN, and MSN all ran stories about Michael Sam, supposedly the first openly gay NFL prospect. But there have been openly gay men in the NFL since at least 1960. At least. And I'm sure they just, told their friends before that. But it wasn't that big a deal. I don't know if you could throw or catch the football. That's what they want. But let's take a look at that name so that we can understand why it's being said here spiritually. Notice he plays for Missouri, which equates to misery. And we talked about that Monday. His name itself has a lot of meanings. Now remember Bob Dylan, the Super Bowl commercial that showed Missouri, misery, and the number 666 repeated over and over again? And you can look that up. They always play the Super Bowl commercials, right? Now I'm going to play a little bit something for you, and hopefully you guys could hear it. You did Monday, so I think it'll work for you. Listen to Bob Dylan.
You're still out here doing these songs, you're still on tour.
I do, but I don't take it for granted.
Why do you still do it? Why are you still out here?
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. I made a bargain with it, a long time ago, and...
Now why he didn't say devil right there? It was on the tip of his tongue.
I'm holding up my hand.
What was your bargain?
To get where, I am now.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
with the chief commander.
On this earth?
And on this earth, and then in the world we can't see.
Our journey is not complete until our gay brothers and sisters are treated like anyone else under the law.
Now, is this our Prime Commander here? What is the gain? And let's talk about Michael. And we'll just talk about what these words mean. Michael, who is like God. Sam, from Samuel, name of God, from Shem, son of Noah, which expresses a person's deeds and characters. Obviously, homosexuality is supposed to be an abomination. This is pretty much repeated. But I'm not sure it's homosexuality so much as other things that were going on, and it still looks like genetic manipulation to me. Sam also comes from Samael, the chief of the fallen angels, and again, this is Satan, Lucifer, El, but anything of El is a spirit from Saturn, Satan. Now again, I'm using these words lightly, of course, because we can't blame it all on one guy. So therefore, the name Michael Sam from Missouri means, who is like God? You can tell by his sexual misconduct. It is Samuel, the chief of the fallen angels, who will cause misery, torment, grief, and woe. He is Satan, 666. Just the meanings of his name. You can get that entire story. And as I've been telling you, when we start breaking apart names, they are playing something in our mind that we may not see or know right away, but it comes up and there's a certain agenda. Again, February 6, 2014, CNN interviews a Carmen Camara, transgender model, who may become Victoria's next secret angel. Interestingly enough, now she is pretty. We can argue the right or wrong of this, but they use people who look a certain way, whether that person is male or female, although she is no longer, is fine by me. But why is it being pushed prime time in front of our kids all the time? And you see pictures of her, you can notice the one-eyed symbolism again. There's quite a few pictures, and she goes on and says that she likes doing those selfies all the time. Well, she usually covers one eye, and then she has an apple on this iPad thing. Is that apple? I don't know, I don't have one. But representing forbidden fruit again, or an apple as a severed heart, because it also represented in Rome the heart. So she's holding a severed heart out there. Why are these things coming out? Now she goes on to say she wasn't sure this was going to happen. We don't know if it's going to happen, but it seems like the Skittle thing, the Taste the Rainbow thing, is just being shoved in our faces. And if you look at the media bashing Putin right now and bashing the Olympic Games, you realize it's still just pushing this gaying of the planet agenda. And let's take a look at the names here again, as well as to get an understanding of what is being said spiritually, because we listen as much spiritually as we do by our ears. Our eyes also hear. So Victoria's secret angel. Victoria, victorious, conquering in battle with power and authority over others. Secret, hidden occult knowledge. Angel, a spiritual being superior to humans. So we put these together, Victoria's secret angel, and we get the meaning of what this is going to be, because it tells a story again. It means victorious and conquering in battle with power and authority over others through hidden occult knowledge of an angel, a spiritual being superior to humans. Again, the alien / angelic agenda is being pushed in our faces. And interestingly enough, Victoria's secret angel, Rosie Harrington, appeared in Transformers 3, The Dark Side of the Moon, which has many references to fallen angels as well. It even looks like some of Kubrick's work and going back in time, and these things being shown and maybe triggered in our memories. Should be noted that Pink Floyd, too, the album called The Dark Side of the Moon, uses pyramid and rainbow symbolism as well. I'm sure that's just by accident. Prism or prison, yes, good. Yeah, that was really good. So he also is doing a spread for a magazine in the UK. Well, I should say she, because I guess she's no longer packing. But anyway, a glamour magazine. In witchcraft, a glamour is a magic spell which changes one appearance to make one more attractive, to fool the people looking at you or person, to deceive. Now take a look at her name, Carmen Carrera. Carmen is initiation from charm or magic spell, enchantment, chanting verse, magical power to charm and win others by casting a magic spell. Carrera means race. So we put this together, Carmen Carrera, and the meaning we get will probably not surprise you. There is an incantation, the chanting of a verse of magical power to charm and win you over. A magical spell is being cast over the human race. And we see this every time we turn on the television, every time we listen to the radio, everything we watch and hear and eat and do. The word race is a classification which separates distinct populations by cultural, ethnic, and genetic groups. We are not just talking about color lines here, people. Genetics is where we get the word Genesis. It is the geological record of the human families of DNA, which every day we are finding more and more of them. Just last week, I was sent 10,000 messages that the big-headed people, the ones with the big head, they're not human. That's not what the article said. They said they are from an unknown race of people. And we have been finding these unknown races of people, uncharacterized races of people all over the world. They contain human DNA. They contain strands of some other things. It means that scientists do not know anything. But right now, I think what we're talking about is there are two very distinct genetic races existing inside of the human race during the time of Noah. Because this is spoken about again in all cultures all over the world. Just like these big-headed people. Now remember, Noah was perfect in all of his generations, which means genes, which means DNA. And you can look that up in Genesis 6:9. What they are trying to say is Noah's bloodline was not corrupted by fallen angels, aliens, perhaps a genetic mutation, because this is what science is calling these strange races that are popping up all over the world, not just one place. Kind of as a side note, they've also found an ancient city in India that has traces of an atomic explosion. This is an ancient city. It must be at least 12,000 years old, 12 to 20, that still has today radiation traces. So we know, because we're seeing it, and people who've listened to my Fukushima stuff, seen that genetic engineering and genetic changes like giganticism happens when we play with radiation. So again, these fallen angels who had sexual relations with humans and produced giants. We know for a fact that something had sex with us. Neanderthals did. There are several different lines that they found that are not Neanderthal that had sex with us. Danuvians had sex with us. There's a new line that we talked about, the Adaman people, a line that they have no idea where it came from, somewhere in Asia, that was, they're saying it, archaic human. So again, they had sex with us. So either we're easy or like we're that good. I don't know. But there are a lot of different lines, and we have proof in our DNA right now that we are mixed with not just human as we are now. The rest of mankind at that time of Noah seems pretty easily to see here that they were contaminated with something, either a fallen angel, a DNA, a spirit of rebellion, the strange flesh. Could that have been mutation and had nothing to do with gayness, nothing to do with homosexuality? Although if you read through the Bible, there seems to be a lot of that going on, as well as pedophilia and sex within families. There's a lot of this going on. Pretty filthy book the more you read it. Now if you go into Matthew 24, 38, 39, Jesus declares, as it was in the days before the flood, they were drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and the flood took them all away. What are they? So Noah's blood was pure with something. And then there were what? These mutants, these other races. Now, spiritually speaking here, even now, there are two different races of human beings emerging in the world. If you're Christian, think of it as those who are Christ-like. Those who are working towards their spirit, if you like. And those imbued with Holy Spirit, I guess. Spirit of something else. People who are kind and good and want more than this other thing that's fairly obviously, to me, in the world. And if there are two different races, it's not to do with colors. And those who are filled with the spirit of the Antichrist. Anti as in just different than us. Anti as in non-human, if you like. I'm seeing this too, because they are doing things that are so horrific on this planet that they cannot be the same as us. They would care. At his return, we are told by many different books, Jesus, I'll say the name, shall divide these two races. As it was in the days of Noah, those who have been made clean by the Spirit of Christ shall be protected. Those with the spirit of the Antichrist will suffer the wrath of God when it is poured out. These stories again, the fifth fire, these are all over the world, different names, but it's a dark side and a light side. Has nothing to do with color, but with the heaviness. Look at it, that light as in warm, beautiful light. And before I go off this one, I have to say one more thing, which was strange. George Zimmerman was scheduled to fight DMX in a celebrity boxing match. In the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life. This was advertised all over the television. They were looking for a bunch of people. Who's going to do it? Why DMX would do it, I have no idea. Zimmerman is pretty obvious here. Now remember the connection, George Zimmerman, Trevor Martin, to the rainbow. And if you go to turtleislandnews.info, you will see an article about Zimmerman, and you will see how well trained this man on the street was. And we've talked about young Trevor Martin and Skittles. And again, Taste the Rainbow. It should be noted that DMX was very specifically selected for this event. If you've heard his work, you're probably guessing right now why. But to take it a little further, we have to look at the names and what they mean, because these things are just being thrown in our faces again. Why would anyone do such a ludicrous thing? Ridiculous thing. Again, Zimmerman, useful fool. Sorry. So why was he chosen, DMX? Take a look at the names involved in this event and you can see the spiritual meaning behind it, because all the events are about that. So George means husband, man. Zimmerman, carpenter. In John, it tells us the Father is the husbandman, and Matthew tells us Jesus is the carpenter's son. I don't know if it has much to do with the widow's son, but it's interesting, right? So husbandman and carpenter. We're seeing a joining of two different things here. DMX's real name is Earl Simmons. Earl is a warrior, a chief leader. Simmons is from seaman, from the sea. DMX, Dark Man X. Dark, in this case, means evil. X is chi from Greek for Christ. That's why we have Xmas. Revelations 9 tells us Satan is the leader of the fallen. Revelation 13 tells us the beast is from the sea, and that is the Antichrist. DMX have come out and said that's what he is. He is not, but he is perhaps channeling this spirit, this entity, for fame and fortune, as many do. Or he's just singing what he's told to sing, as many do. And it's interesting that DMS' debut album was called It's Dark and Hell is Hot. Their names give us this message: the husbandman and carpenter, Jesus Christ, versus the warrior and chief leader of the fallen angels, the beast from the sea, and the dark evil one, who's the Antichrist. I don't like Zimmerman, but it's the names that they're using that are supposed to trigger anyone. This guy is pretty much the most hated person on the planet. I think everyone would like to beat him up. But remember, magical spells are based on harvesting energy from unsuspecting victims. This is why it is done. This is how it is done. Harvesting energy from magic spells is the reason for all the satanic Super Bowl ritual performances and all the performances that are being done right in front of our eyes. This fight was actually cancelled, but it was intentionally set up, knowing the hatred most feel for Zimmerman. Through this fight, evil principalities will get the majority of people to spend their energy rooting for DMX's victory, and in doing so, this energy will be harvested by evil spirits, because this is a spiritual representation, symbolic of the Antichrist victory over Christ. And again, I'm saying it can't be looked at just simplistically. It's symbolism that is being thrown in our faces here over and over and over again. It's a symbolic battle, as it always would have been. Now, George Zimmerman DMX fight totally been canceled due to the outrage of the public. Press conference was held Tuesday, and obviously the energy from the masses was so intense already that they had to stop. Now, I don't know if that means they've already got what they needed from us, or we fought against it. I can't tell you either way, but the spirit of the Antichrist is definitely hard at work to deceive us. The spirit of the Christ, well, eyes to see. If we look at Christ as a good energy rather than a person, as we've talked to you before, these names were like Moses. These things were titles more than anything else. Now, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote once, the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. He said this in relationship to darker and lighter races of men. This is not what we fight here. This is not what we fight at all. We fight light and dark feelings of men. Greed. When we analyze the problem of color line here from a spiritual point of view, we can see this problem still exists. However, it is not in reference to race as relates to any skin color. It is reference to race as it relates to the darkness or the heaviness and the light within a man's soul, man and woman's. We see these differences played out every day. All we have to do is look for 5 minutes online and see what's happened during the day. The eye is the lamp of the body. So then, if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. We have to step out of this mainframe. we have a chance if we see it. But thine eye will be evil, thine whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? We can choose where we're putting our energy to. All of these things that are played in front of us, we could choose not to play in there. The elite are playing mind games on a stage and wasting our time. They assume any role to sway the opinions as necessary, and this is master chess with the occasional gambit. Lincoln wrote this. This false light that has come to the world has deceived many. It is the same false light that says it has come to illuminate those who are humble and worship it. Light in Latin is luce, named after Lucifer, the bright morning star, or Venus. The strategy they are using is to give you two choices in which both are no good. The word Democrat taking its root from the Arabic word demos, or demon, and Republican taking its root from the word reptile, or Raphaim. The choice is reptiles or demons. You choose. To prove this, one simply has to note how many times leaders and presidents have been photographed making the sign of Baphomet, the great goat god of Mendes. Due to the bloodlines of the presidents of the U.S. having Merovingian origin, they are definitely blue-blood reptilian hybrids walking around the White House and Parliament, hailing from the Orion constellation, Venus, Agartha, Mars, Vulcan, and who knows where else. Running, all of us, ruling us, of course. This is why they continue with this bloodbath, with the slightest show of regret or resolution. It will never stop. And I'm sure many listening to me are familiar with David Icke's work, so it is unnecessary to reiterate what he's been explaining for years in detail. So I'm just going to cover how blending here took place. Reason 152. Here is what commonly happens. Because the light cannot comprehend the darkness, many who do not have such strong evil inclinations refuse to believe anyone, especially their leaders who have such charisma could get involved with vile plots of enslaving humanity. That recent Zeitgeist movie, obviously directed by the elite, shifts the blame to a current world state on the product of humanity making all the wrong decisions in regards to how the planet is preserved. Thus, their solution is the Venus Project. Anything related to Venus, you will find the Dark Lord in the midst of. This is why it gives you power to know such things, so you cannot be easily fooled as the masses often are. The same companies that were talked about on the first Zeitgeist were the ones who funded it. They have no shame in admitting that either. Highlight the problem. Provide a solution. First off, the term itself is animist. An animist is a person that emulates, worships, sometimes mates with animals in order to gain the ability of that particular animal. In Africa, there was no limit to how many tribes were animist, and how much of the information on how to do such things came directly from Africa. The ancients played a dot to dot with the stars in the heavens, making animal outlines in the constellations based on the energies they felt emitting from those stars. One of the main tribes known to do this were the Nubians, from the Temple of Sheba, as I discussed earlier. It is true that the Garden of E.Din was somewhere in Kesh, the lush land of Nubia, where the four rivers flowed, and the Queen of the South was in position as ruler over the Horn of Africa. Remember, Nubia had all the gold mines that made the pharaohs rich beyond their imagination. This, of course, when they could subdue it and collect tribute, of course. The Nubians proved to be a challenge, as the annals of records. Lengthy wars between Nubians and Egypt occurred. Even Alexander the Great, the legendary two-horn, known by the Arabs as Dal Qornam, who built the wall to keep the hordes away from the Holy Land, was turned back at Nubia when faced with Candace, commanding the elephants in legions for war. This, I believe, fueled much of the animosity between Europeans and the darker Nubians, which later were enslaved and dragged to the Americas and all over the world. In the end, Nubia took over Egypt completely, right around the time it was due to crumble away, just as Obama has taken over the U.S. just in time for it to crumble. And of course him to be blamed. The Nubians later inherited the new version of Christianity by missionaries infesting their country. It is said in the Arabian prophecy that the Nubians will rise again and destroy the Kaaba, and it will never be restored. Ethiopian has ether in its root. The people have strong, dark, beautiful skin, silky hair, luring eyes. The first stories of the serpents was the Nagas, which we've talked about before. They were in Nubia first, then they migrated to Persia, and then went back and forth on the current to Asia. They were called the Nubians. Well, they were called by the Nubians Nugusi, which was a well-respected last name in the country and still is today. The Naga are more the image of the serpents described in Japan and China, rather than bipedal hybrids. As I said before, the serpent races are vast as their own possibility, a lot more perhaps diverse. It's very clear. Man has inhabited this planet along with serpents for thousands of years, intermingling. We can easily forget the dinosaurs here. Will there ever be a truce? Walt Disney, surprisingly enough, put much work and emphasis on animation because he was deeply involved in creating a framework for a new wave of animalistic mind control that began on a person as a child. Let us examine one story of the biggest cartoon maker in history, Walt Disney. The story itself begins before Walt steps on the scene, but has to do with a certain man that Walt Disney was well acquainted with. This man grew up in Russia during hard times. In order for one to even seek audience with a queen or royal court in these times, you had to discover something especially useful for the empire. If you were not of wealthy stock, this was the only way to turn around an otherwise miserable life for you and your family as the Black Plague swept over the land. This gentleman deemed that he could do it through the occult, and soon enough he discovered what was later called phantasmagoria, with the tagline, optical illusions, mechanical works of art. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Now, reason 155, people are made to believe Disney was a big kid, like we all wish to be, playing in the fantasy worlds of castles, medieval lore with dragons and princes and talking mice. And now, Disney, along with many other sick pedophiles, had an agenda here. all the other sick men positioned themselves to be the corruptors of innocent youth. The fantasy world of Disney was a Disney of satanic pedophilia, which was just found out again. People were pimping their kids there, by the way. That we all had to visit because our parents knew no better. What you don't know can hurt you. Since I'm really in this for the children, I have a special assignment to dethrone this devil Disney. If we put together as a people, it should be because of things like this that hurt children no matter what color, what race. He not only used pedophilic, suggestive mind control techniques in his films, his organizations, obviously run by Dark Lord himself, continues to put forth mind-altering media that gets worse as time goes on. These things are an art of evoking demonic spirits. Do you remember the movie Fantasia? So, Phantasmagoria. It's an art of evoking demonic spirits. Obviously, Disney knew what he was doing since he wrote Fantasia with an F instead of a PH. Taking a look at that movie now with your eyes open will reveal an entirely different picture versus what you may have perceived before. The English language, the play on the word kid is obvious. A kid is a baby goat. In days when Fantasia first began, they lacked TV, so they accomplished it by smoke, pre-recorded sounds of actual torture, and light. Showed above more, many participants claimed that they had never seen or heard anything so horrifying. They could not tell if the demons were real or still part of the light show. And of course the demons were real. On the back of many Disney titles, it contains the trademark Phantasmagoria, meaning the special art was used making the film. Of course, people thought this was incredible, becoming lovers of horror, that all was an, outward scheme. Many suffered mental and spiritual damage while trenched in the frames of Wonderland. This brings us to Gregorian chants. A long time ago, it was discovered that when singing certain twisted hymnals, you could actually bring lower forms forth by your sound alone. One would have to be a master at singing these hymns perfectly. To do this, and the masters of the Gregorian chants were created. When you are listening to certain music from Gothic times, always featured on soundtracks of Disney films and many others, it is actually Gregorian chants, playing at least in the background. Remember, Gregory is another name for fallen angels. Is actually a creature Nimrod is always seen holding in his hand. Let's take a break. You're listening to Turtle Island News with Tracey Kennedy, and we will be right back. And no, I did not turn my microphone on. Welcome back, everyone. As Marshall just said, we are all listener supported, and thank you very much, everyone, for your help. It means a lot. I'm having to decide whether or not I'm going to keep my Turtle Island News page up. I think it's helpful for us, but I can go to a free one. Doesn't matter. No big rush over this. Now, one of the questions in break, Merovingians. No, I'm not thinking reptile per se. What I'm thinking is mare, so water creatures. I may do something at the end of this next week and go into that line, because there's a lot of Merovingian line in your presidency, and I do see a lot of foretellings. In recent stuff, I'm not even talking about ancient prophecies here, just what's being played in front of our eyes by people who are paying for people to play these things in front of our eyes, that it looks like America's what's going to be attacked next. But we'll talk about that later. I don't know if, as ancient people, if we've been able to tell the difference between somebody who was reptilian and someone who was fish-like, amphibian. I don't know if we would. We definitely know big. We know big. We know big and hairy. We know big and big-headed. But apparently, one way or another, we had sex with those beings. I wouldn't have guessed it was by choice myself. Unless it was out of desperation. I don't know. I can't see me walking down the street going, "Hey, you big hairy thing. How you doing?" I don't know. Maybe we were different. Maybe there was a nuclear war and there were so few people on the planet, you get what you can. If someone's strong or very smart, you pick them, right? Because you want to survive. Yeah, okay, under those circumstances, yeah, I would have gone for big and hairy. I would have gone for the biggest, hairiest thing I could have found. Here, pick up that tree, honey, go bash all those heads in. So, okay, moving on. I got lost there for a minute. Where were we? Okay. Frequency. I cannot put an emphasis enough on how powerful sound is, how it affects humans and animals and all other beings. The chants have led to possession in humans, just as a serpent can be charmed with a flute. Rap is now wrapping up the mind of young, so minds are tied up and immobilized, but not for long. Depends on the rap, depends on what is being said. As we said before, musicians and music is always given by the muses, the seven sisters, so it can be used for positive or negative. Even rap, all music could be the loudest heavy metal in a planet, and if it's saying something nice, it will make plants grow, it will make beautiful water crystals. So it matters what is being said. Although the frequency behind the sound, it's saying, "Oh, hello, fluffy bunnies, we love you so much," and the music is screaming, "You're all gonna die," we'll feel the "you're all gonna die" stuff. You know what I mean? So sound is also a key ability that we can use. We possess it. We possess it with our voice. It's why we use a certain tone to speak to small children. Men change their voices to speak to women. Usually make their voice softer, non-threatening. We know this naturally. We know how to do it. How we talk to animals that we've just met. Frequency can be fired at the body, causing all shells, lower life forms, to break free from that body. It is at that moment a person knows that they are actually on them. One can never know what it is like to be clean until they are truly washed, but not in the blood of the Lamb. Come look at what we're saying here. This is not a figure of speech. The subconscious mind has to make sense of it, and it literally does. Reason 156. On the top, if you look up on my page, we are looking at Matrix Part 11. It is now done. This will be, the Matrix Code will be our last series, part of this series if we get through it today. So you can look at the top left. You see an ancient Gregorian hymnal used by the Holy See. Three-horned fleur-de-lis is in the correct position above the Venusian heart of Voodoo. There is now one group of masters of Gregorian chants that has even performed in Las Vegas. People think it sounds just like opera, and it's really cool. One of the 4 patriarchs of Catholicism was Gregory. He was, without a doubt, incarnate Gregory, singing. He wrote hymnals back when. Also keep in mind that it is the evil Gregory who created the calendar that we are on, the Gregorian solar calendar. It is also known that when the Arabs visited the Russians to see if they would pay for mystical secrets, the Russians made a large banquet for the Shah. The actual menu I will be sure to put later if we want to go on with this thing, because the menu is pretty interesting. Now, while the Shah was stuffing himself, the Russians were playing Gregorian chants in the other room. The Shah was put into a trance, also known as mesmerism, and his tongue went loose, telling them all the secrets of Arabia. It was not long after that the horde covered their land, and many feel before them that the wall could not hold them any longer. Its weakness was revealed. As I've said before, many factions have come together under one roof by intermingling bloodlines. We can just call them the V. The V is a symbol for Roman numeral 5. 5 is more properly known as penta, the pent. On the penta has the same meaning as pent on serpent. The original origin of the word pent is a feather, thus the serpent actually means a feathered snake. This also links to our main strategic defense building, the Pentagon, which still means the feathered dragon, the snake. If you remember the movie V, the storyline goes that some reptilian-like beings from another planet come to Earth saying they are going to help us with technology, but in actuality did come to take over our Earth, enslave everyone, and put them into tanks that look like a coffin, and later use them as a little snack-a-bite on the way home, or whatever else they were going to take over after they raped our planet. They did this by infiltrating the government, replacing various key people with clones, until they could make willing servants of the rest. The only force opposing this was the resistance, the name that you've heard so many times before. During the times of oracles, unity between the woman and the serpent was evaluated, and many women became worshippers of the god S. Yes, god S, but what we're really saying is the god S. One of the most popular was Europa, who was worshipped in Sidon. The time center of the earth the serpent was wrapped itself around, they called him the Ouroboros. Europa moved to the island of Crete to establish a full serpent worship and occult training center. If you don't believe this fact, I'll tell you a secret. The word is actually secrete, which also means venom, that comes from the pores, a white pus, or an emission. The island of Crete also contains a place known as Gnosis, and of course this is where the whole Gnosticism movement began, which is where you find the roots of the serpent. When looking at the statue of the goddess Europa, you will see her holding snakes in each hand. She is simply another part of the pyramid, and the is in Gnos is the sign that Isis is at the present. You know Isis, you know Sis, Jesus, Isis, Iosis, Isis, Osiris, Sirius. It's still all to do with this. Now, reason 157. Indeed, the old Orbis knows many things, but is the deceiver trapped in the abyss of the universe and will never ascend. Here is a secret. The planetary symbols you see on the right-hand side of my page are the planets that are already on the agenda. On the left you will see the circle of life. This circle can be moved about fast or slowly, forward or reverse, depending on your outlet or intention. It is the wheel. And as I started with the science today, the science says everything around us is changing in our whole solar system, as are we. It is not better when you need to eat, and a mountain when you wish to rest. I will give you some advice here. Never serve anything that has been created, and you will get far. Do not love something that dies. Keep the Most High, whatever you may call that entity, that being, that great all, as your focal point only, and you will fare well in the future. If you come to look at a fork in the road, always go straight. I will not be with you long. Already my place has been prepared and I see it. I long for it. If I must taste death, I will dine with all the courses. The word present is actually an anagram, too, for serpent. This means every time you say to someone, I have a present for you, you are telling them you have a snake for them. This is why I've become so persistent in cracking the code, because I realize that we owe our children to stand against this thing. Some adults will listen to these things over, and due to mental and physical damage each person has put through in their life, this work may at times fall on deaf ears. But the youth of today are very clever, and they sense something is up. So this lets them know. Remember, if they get our youth, we have lost our greatest result, and we must be free. And we must free them from the loop, also known as the halo. Very popular game. With that being said, I'll explain a little of what has happened during our days as a child that has led ultimately to most not being able to perceive what is right directly in front of them. This, of course, starts as a baby. The moment you exit the womb of your mother, while the child is in the womb, it is actually seeing in 5D. The reason this is possible is due to the baby working through the water bag or the amniotic fluid of the mother. Anyone that has seen spirits often note they appear light, airy, almost watery, no regular edges, sometimes gaseous looking. This is what the baby is seeing, so it becomes easy for them to recognize their mother. Baby does not open their eyes, but they see. The baby does not breathe, does not eat. That's why you have to remove the mucus from their mouths and their nose. They are living on something completely different. Completely different that we could still live on today. We could be the same. We were just taught from the beginning not to. It's one of the reasons why we wrongly force feed our kids. They're such fussy eaters. They're so fussy. You know, they won't eat this, they won't eat that at a certain time. It's because they don't need it. And they're trying to tell you something that we have lost. This reason is possible due to the baby looking through that sack and other things. They are looking at the mother's design or pattern rather than her actual physical appearance. The baby is learning the outside world without actually seeing it. Sees it completely different. When the baby is born, the damage begins immediately. through the procedures the doctors use. Remember that doctors are under the oath of caduceus and have sworn to uphold many things detailed in the oath that most doctors don't even understand what they really mean. It is almost like putting your right hand over your heart and pledging your allegiance to the flag. You don't really know what you just did, but it will not stop you, and it will not stop it from having an effect. What you don't know will and can hurt you. If the eye on the stove is on, but you don't know it and put your hand on it, you will still burn. This is by no means saying that all doctors are initiated into some serpent mystery school and intend to kill off the youth on purpose. Of course, that would be extreme. But what they do has an effect, and its ultimate intention, whether or not they know it. Those that created the backbone of the studies entailed, along with the procedures of medical care, are completely aware of what they set out to do as far as hindering all of the mental, physical, and spiritual growth of the people seeking their help. This has been done through their constant introduction of new medical potions, more properly called poisons. Along the way, many practitioners notice several things that can be done much better. Some even switch to becoming naturopathic doctors, but most remain involved, and when they become doctors, they simply become prescribers of medication, not healers. It has become as easy as locating the symptom to prescribing the drug. The drug company will make sure to let them know that the drugs take care of, of what along the way, and at times free vacations if they promote that drug. I don't need to remark here how many side effects, or maybe just effects, these drugs have, and that there's a greater damage done to the actual chakra system of the person than anything else. For example, when a person experiences heart problems, rejuvenators know that there is a type of blockage in the heart chakra. This could be due to a lost loved one, immense stress, guilt, loss, judgment, various situations that related, obviously, to your heart. Correct healing method is begin to work with a person's heart so that they can get clearance. This removes the spiritual ailment from the soul, which in turn will remove the physical ailment from the body. The physical ailment itself is just another method the body uses to tell the person there is something wrong and get a solution. This fact is known heavily in mystery schools of the ancients, especially Egypt, but all over. These types of treatments free a person, however, and that is not the goal. They would rather begin to administer medicines that actually block the chakra centers, giving the person a false sense of temporary relief. There are many more chakras than just 5 or 7, and each play a unique role. Blocking them will temporarily give you relief, but of course long-term damage is done over time. Another example is when one takes an aspirin for headaches. The aspirin tells the brain to kill the headache sensation. This does not fix the reason why the headache has happened. When you do this too many times, whatever was initially causing the headaches will choose another center to convey the information of the problem, which could be then the stomach. Be any place. It wants you to listen to yourself. So the person may begin to experience stomach aches. Then they will take something like Pepto-Bismol, which is a liquid, like a liquid aspirin that tells the stomach senses, blocking the chakra, not curing the original problem. This goes on until the person is now taking drugs for everything, which will, of course, increase the problem. After a while, the over-the-counter drugs cease to work. The persons find that they are very sick and totally polluted by these over-the-counter drugs. So they move on to stronger drugs. Reason 158. Traditional Chinese medicine, reflexology, colon therapy, and several other techniques have shown Western medicine is about psychotronic mind drugs, and not wellness. When a baby is born, the incandescent light located on most birth tables does extensive damage to the child's retina. This begins the process of stopping a child from naturally seeing the other dimensions and thus other forms of life. Full spectrum lights are the only lights not found to cause damage to the eyes. The child remains able to see other dimensions when it gets older, can easily see that this world is an illusion. They can see all the different entities that inhabit the world on different vibrations. Children sometimes call them special friends. Of course, the agenda is to take this ability immediately away from the child. Next, they begin shots that lower the child's vibration dramatically through the injection of viruses that are foreign to the system. All the vaccines contain actual virus. Lower dosages and so-called develop your system's immunity to it. It also means the virus is now in your body at low levels, and that can't be good. Many doctors are stressed and have been delivering several babies in one day. Some smoke cigarettes between the deliveries. They touch the baby's soft spot of that energy, and that is transferred to the child. You know, the soft spot in the head, which is still fresh. Delivery procedure has now reached a state of barbarism with the advent of cesarean, Caesar, sea snake section. The child no longer experiences coming through the mother's birth canal, which is a very sacred time for the baby and the mother, prepares them for entry in this world. And instead, what they really want to do is cut the baby out. Now, I'm not saying women who have no choice in this matter are doing the wrong thing, but it's happening more and more. Our body consists of wheels of chakras, all sensitive to light and energy. The chakras control images and sensations that are protected and projected to your mind. The thread or cables that connect us all plug into the chakra centers. Learning how to stimulate and manipulate chakras is the major part of dissolving Indra's net. After the horror show, the baby arrives at home. If they were put on formulas and not breastfed, the formula changes the genetic makeup of the baby. As one can see, this stuff is not called milk, but formula, indicating the type of special mixture for transformation. Mother's breast milk contains all the specific nutrients needed for the baby that are uniquely calibrated for that child. Anything else beside water, pure juices, alter the baby's pH level. The next, the baby is placed in a crib, which is normally filled with bars. The baby has its first maddening experience with the cage, the cube. Most parents place the same toy that was placed over their cribs when they were babies, that circling, chiming toy that has animals dangling. What does this toy do? What does it begin, that frequency programming? Has anyone ever noticed that the nursery rhymes from long ago survive today, being played with these chime boxes? The famous go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, little baby. You can hear it even now in your head, with this thing spinning over the baby's head in a circular motion, causing certain sounds. The baby's attuned even more. One can imagine the results of thousands of hours the baby spends alone with this insane toy in the cube. And as the tot begins to go older, it's introduced to cartoons. The word begs, what exactly is being tuned here? A quick search will show Car was actually a bloodthirsty deity that abused children. But is that such a stretch to what's really going on in his innocent child's cartoon? When the cathode ray tube was invented, many men, including Disney, used it as a catalyst for the next level of mind control through the hexagonal color embedding. Next, widescreen digital television was introduced. The key here is the aspect ratio which is a way to open the mind of the viewer. When a person viewing a widescreen, their eyes become slightly cocked in separate directions in order for them to be able to view the entire screen. While studying metaphysics, know that the position of the eyes equate to different states of consciousness. Your eyes are spread wide, your third eye is stretched open. This is much more effective portal for mind control. Even now, tribes maintain that they are descendants of serpent races. However, what they are always excluding is that the serpent races generally crossbreed with them in a forcible manner. These types of serpents, which are not your common garden snake, do not stay on the surface but remain in underground cavern systems. Few report actual encountering these beings face to face, although some have. I would tell you shapeshifters take on human form. However, it becomes evident by the shape of their skull and their brow, which is something like a diamond, that they are reptilian. Be of value to know that the serpent races far more advanced than we are at this particular moment. They brought many things that made them appear as gods to indigenous people who were discovering a new world after the flood. These entities were so far ahead, they had already established hyperdimensional space travel. The serpent races are resource gatherers, and it is known that they are robbing the Earth and the other planets in this system of various resources since day one. They have interfere with our natural cycle. Pyramid means fire, pyra, in the center. This symbolizes the flame or the fiery nature of the serpent. These pyramids, the serpent races to use, not only access the underground caverns, but systems also point ways for hyperdimensional jumps, much like depicted in the movie Stargate. Earth has a great history of great giant cataclysms that not only put many pyramids underwater, but also remove their capstones. The Earth itself has a cleansing mechanism that seems to activate every 12,600 years or so. Is it not strange that they found that ancient city that was approximately 12,000-ish years ago that still has radiation? Of course, they're saying the radiation came from a meteor strike. I don't know. They can fall pretty hard. They can be pretty hot. But this thing, they're saying, left the imprint of something like Second World War bombs. So, looks like a bomb. Now, during these times, the Earth is inundated with water or scorched by fire. Many of the members of the serpent races during these times simply bear deeper into the ground, sometimes center of the Earth, in order to escape the damage that is wreaked on the surface. They make new stories. They seed us with stories, much like Dune did. Did you guys read that? Excellent books. Now, even as I'm saying this, deeper tunnels are most likely being constructed to house more underground facilities due to the fact the Earth is currently due for another cleaning, and we are seeing this all over. The pyramids are everywhere, not just because it was a popular style. This was the pattern of construction given by the serpent races in order to allow energy to be harnessed, developing working portals that transport more than one being or person. When the stars realign, the feathered serpents known as Pendragon, Quetzalcoatl, will return to this dimension to create and escalate chaos. If you remain, you must be spiritually equipped to fend them off. Basically, the elite members of R1A1 haplogroup, such as the Serbs, the Poles, the Slavs, the Goths, Ashkenazi, and many others, have sealed their fate in being servants of the Dark Lord. They see themselves as creations of the Dark Lord and are waiting for the lineup for the return. They believe they will morph into some type of creature the Dark Lord is, I guess, and will commence to feast upon flesh with him. No matter how sick and sadistic this may sound, it seems that it's the backbone of all these ancient beliefs. That's why they end so badly and end up with some sort of cannibalism and bloodletting. The entire structure, built on duality, is scheduling the next showdown, or Armageddon, I think within the next year and a half. If it's not already here, because those ships are just parked out freaking side. And this is an age-old battle that existed before our consciousness evolved. So we have little internal memory of our role in all this. And the Darksiders have, however, accepted their role in some way, sealed their fates, and are willing servants to this cause. Time travel is a thing of the past. It has already been discovered, and it is in constant use. Disinformation has tried to make us believe that pyramids were tombs. It's true that many wanted to be buried in the pyramids to ensure their soul would have no problem making the trip to their next existence, memory intact. Next existence for us is supposed to be ethereal, not taking place on another physical body. What a drag. This has been happening since the elite have been manipulating this technology and been using it to hold souls in stasis. The Earth has a failsafe due to the type of beings that are living on it and inside it, because many races do not get along for reasons I'm going to explain next. Planets go through many wars. Our large sets of visitors come from Sirius star system known as the Dog Star or the God Star. To understand how these races become more advanced than humanoid Earthlings is a matter of their star systems in the distance, which is time, have been around light years longer than ours. Life has developed similar way. We are evolving here, but their worlds were just much earlier. And just as you see an insect go through the entire metamorphosis phase within the span of 1 month, while it can take a human several lifetimes to go through some gigantic genetic leap, some beings just move faster than others, especially when they are unhindered, which I don't think we've ever experienced. A word on time. English language does work kind of twofold here. When not knowing what the words really mean, it does begin a sequence of mind control. On the other hand, when knowing what the words mean, it puts you in a loop of secrets. It is obvious that we should exist outside of time. This is immortality. The mistake many magicians have made when being offered immortality is not considered these two things. We are already immortal, and if we were not purposely made to forget that profound fact, we would know it. Just because you are immortal does not mean anything more than you shall not perish. It says nothing of details of your lifestyle in immortality. What does it mean to be locked in a perpetual cage for all eternity? The conditions of solitude may have been lifted, however. I have seen several lions trapped in one cage, and those born in captivity lack the images to imagine what it would be like to be free. Thus they cannot conceive it and perceive the current condition has always been so. They think they are really free, and that is an illusion. This is what also means not to fly and have hyperdimensional and extraspatial capacity. You are grounded, your wings stripped, and you now think you have always walked because you can't even imagine yourself flying except in your dreams, and you think they are just imagination. I think the Great All wants to take us in our image, our imagination, so thus your imagination should not be taken lightly, since it's the only time we can actually perceive of such other things. Many think They have time. So that they're going to do it another week. But then they are too weak. Not knowing they are in a daze, they go about this for days. Not knowing that time does not actually exist for the immortal. Master knowledge is knowing that the movements of things hold great external knowledge, but there are parts of that knowledge that should never be placed internal, as it will affect the host as something foreign, changing the entire makeup of the host. Imagine if the sun never rose again. Would people sleep all the time because it was dark? Of course not. However, people still consider the sun goes up and then back down, and one day can be counted. They age themselves with ideas of their birthday, but will not stay. They're stray too far from the path of the wisdom of the ageless. It is known that the moon, better known by the ancients as Sin, was placed in our solar system. At some point in time, it appeared, and it was not originally here. Many indigenous tribes who have already made contact with other constellations had maps that did not include the moon on them. Then, a certain time in history, all of a sudden the moon just appears everywhere, in all the astrological outlines, around the same time on the planet. One should understand the effects of this particular moon on this earth. The moon controls moods. The moon controls tides. The moon controls growth, thus decay. The most importantly, things like gravity, magnetic energy. I notice when the moon ellipses, it is easy to get out of the body. So it is easy to see that there would be a big difference in our energy of the world if the moon was not there. Many do not know that the change will actually be positive. Many have done studies on the notion that the moon is somehow towed here, and that the size of many ships belong to these entities. That isn't entirely possible, I think. So I know you may be saying the moon, okay, sure, it could be towed because it's not hot, but nothing can tow the sun. Today you will find information on top secret project called the Lucifer Project, or Project Lucifer. It is a project which is an attempt to make a detonation, which they already did, a plutonium play node on Saturn, just causing Saturn to go supernova and become a sun. Actually, they already did it on Jupiter, and it didn't work. So this is why the Cassini stayed longer. They're thinking of dumping it into the hexagon and seeing if they can make it another sun. Did you see 2010, Space Odyssey? Look at it again. Other planets have also been considered. This has already been in trial. The trial detonation, the Cassini space probe, with the plutonium was at Jupiter, creating a hole the size of Earth. The idea was to create a chain reaction. It was really good. It didn't succeed, or I don't know, maybe it did. It would then appear that we had two suns in the sky, and thus we begin to receive lots of planetary energy through the rays emitting this new sun, S-O-N. One would have to look deeper into things to understand where man received this type of knowledge from. If our current sun was not transported here through black holes, it would have been another planet already, perhaps Vulcan, that had been given a boost by detonating various types of elements that make planets go from frigid, cold words of ice to suns. Let there be light. And there was light. Our word ice comes from Isis. In their theories, men are suns, women are ice, not moons, two opposite. This entire matter becomes a little more difficult to exactly pinpoint due to the fact that most of us have never traveled into the cosmos. Thus, all the information we receive is second and third hand, and surely completely altered. The elite, of course, know. exactly what's going on, how much radiation we have, what's happening next. But they have never been famous for anything about truth here. There are many habitable planets, bodies in the space. It's hard to know what is going on until we have the opportunity to travel this cosmos, which can be done with the body. There are planets and beings that have long since graduated such petty things as what we are now, experience Earth, thus takes, notes from them. They are entirely self-sustained, like a person can become when they are fully unlocked, in stages. One does not need to eat food or breathe air, which as a baby we do neither. That baby does not breathe for 9 months. Check it out. Thus his or her higher dimensional imprint has reached a phase of totality, and this is how we all start. Once that phase has reached, until you awake, currently in the most are asleep, literally walking around in a dream world, a dream within a dream, or a TV displaying another TV, displaying another TV ad infinitum. Strong persistence is necessary to be revived out of such a debased state as we are in. Inside you, there are those that want to work, those that want to play, and those who want to disrupt everything you do. So be mindful of which one is controlling you. There is the world, you, and the outer forces. You must consider your arrival, your transition, and your breakthroughs. Your states are physical, emotional, intellectual. Being conscious of how you perceive things through all these channels is important. One can easily see dissecting the Gnostic story in the Bible takes some pretty heavy pondering. It would be good to remember that when the Bible came to wider circulation, it's not until around 1611. Most people could not even read. The Bible was kept as a talisman or something of that sort, and was believed to ward off evil by having it around. This is the clear indicator that when they began swashbuckling lands and beating people into submission, they were in no position to examine anything about Isu, Nazarites, Grails, Illuminatis, Jesuits, or anything of that sort. They were following blindly their lust for riches and rank. So truly, it is only recently that the Bible has ever been properly dissected by someone who is non-partial and not in fear of death or excommunication. After all, this is already happening. Path our parents chose was generally what their parents chose, and so on down the line. Another point takes place in universities, of course. This is normally where lots of trickery begins. Oftentimes many embark on professions that really contain no skill without the aid of some type of machine. This is how other part of the war against the machines. The false sense of intelligence is created when a person learns how to operate, let's say, an electron microscope or some strange array device. Without this device, there would be no place for that skill. Having the ability to operate it proficiently falsely makes him feel better in some mental status thing. The person usually cannot build the device from scratch because they lack the knowledge and especially the equipment for fabrication. If they ever go into a country where basic skills like agriculture, irrigation, construction, core abilities are required, they go from rocket scientist to janitor in a hot minute. Nothing they have learned is of value. They have not learned or understood true workings of anything. This is very similar to how many people view the world. The real information about what really controls things they simply don't possess. That is about to change. And we've witnessed this in the fall of Silicon, or shall I say Silicon. Places like the United States, the elite find the people very hard to control, and much too independent. This is why jobs have been moved to places like India and China, where people are passive, less opinionated due to thousands of years of dominant monarchist rule and incredible amount of heavy-handedness. Even now, there are plans being discussed about population decreases, and this is happening. Can you imagine the elite have made people build a world to its capacity, and now they want to enjoy it all for themselves and remove those who are not part of their group for, more pristine places. In the event this is all out of chaos, they will watch from the moon, perhaps. All major cities are located on energy centers. Middle of the vortex, given names like downtown, alluring to the center of the vortex. People are naturally attracted to energy centers like downtown. Even pigeons are. So they tend to pile up in cities. If you look at states like Texas, you see miles and miles of unused, fertile land that could easily ease the tension of the masses if they were allowed to inhabit these territories. When going to some of these places, you will find one or two people own thousands of acres that they are doing nothing with. What kind of buffoonery is this? When a person can just come and say, this is my land, and if you want it, it will cost you X amount of dollars. When the land was stolen from the original inhabitants in the first place. Various countries with limited resources and harsh weather, borders did not exist. They could easily inhabit other parts of the world. The elite have created a false sense of prejudice that makes the people hate each other, but their love for their leaders and their icons still holds. When the United States joined World War II, which seemed to turn the tides, the stage was set for America to appear as it had saved the world from a terrible Antichrist Hitler. Nothing could be further from the truth. As thousands of soldiers died on both sides, the rulers of many countries began to orchestrate the division of peoples, drawing new borders and new boundaries all over the world. The war never stopped. It was never over, and high-ranking officials from Nazi parties, depending on rank, went to just other places to enjoy their plunder. Hitler and the members of the Theosophical Society went to Antarctica after long stays in Argentina, sipping the finest wines from Argentinian vineyards. They eventually returned to Hyperborea, the entrance at the pole. This is what they say. The officials went from Argentina, traveled to South and Central America through the extensive cavern systems located there, as they are all over the world. The only ones that did not get an upgrade are the regular people who succeeded only in killing each other for these guys. They received a war-torn nation that was reduced to rubble, a sound hatred for their neighbor, a secularism that has yet to repair itself. People just became more divided. While the elite laugh and toast a job well done, they begin another phase. The Theosophic, I can't say it, that society set up right in the United Nations, proclaimed itself the region and the religion of the future. This will not be how the world is prepared for the beast, the dragon, the false prophet. If it isn't, I don't know what is. Cthulhu is the brain behind this new age movement and the return of the age of Aquarius. All decisions made by the ascended masters of the Thule, the decisions then passed to their representatives in the UN. This is already going on. So this is not a warning of something to come. It's already here. It's already happened. The $800 billion borrowed by Obama was to allow those high enough on the pyramid to go abroad, to change over currencies, to set up elsewhere before they snatch the carpet from underneath the U.S. They are only waiting for the green light that most of the inner circles have already secured themselves. When the U.S. market crashes, the spiritual leaders of the world will come together once more like they did in 1986 in Assisi, Italy, at St. Francis Basilica. They will once again play a show of all coming together and the belief in the same God. They will unveil God's new representative to everyone. The power behind this individual will be Sanat Kumara, an anagram. This is a mark Satan. There is a you left over. When the beings come on the scene, if you do not prepare before you see their arrival, it will be too late. In known interviews that were done with the gentleman on the left in Reason 21, with Maitreya in the middle, he does the traveling about bringing portents and stories of the Maitreya, much like Dune again, planting the seed. Not to mention this has been done in some of the nicest convention centers in New York City. His current talent, I guess, is he can oversee or oversoul Maitreya. This means when he's talking, he will shift to Maitreya, although the two, of course, look nothing alike. Then he will change back at certain points. I've shown you his picture. I think this is who it is. I tell you the truth, people will wander astray when they see signs and wonders of the shape-shifting, which can be done through spiritual powers and technology, and they probably just use both. Look at how they show up for Chris Angel, and he doesn't have an ink of charisma compared to any ascended masters. In all works, it speaks of this time when humans will be at the final moment in making a choice to give their freedom and souls up for what will appear to be the answer to their problems. It will appear there will be no other options for those who are not prepared. Most will accept it, no problem, as they see their leaders and icons direct them to it, just like they did when they wanted to embrace and endorse Obama. It was a test run, but not without its drawbacks. It will only last for a moment. If it is a second, then we will see why we should have listened to all the redundant warnings that everyone keeps getting, ignoring them on some level or another. I believe this also to be a pivot point in our future existence, on a level extending far into our afterlife. This is all happening now, in you, in our primary reality. So no matter who tells you it's a hologram or it's just your perception, if I pitch you, will it not hurt you? Our world needs to begin to act like who we really are. Simply imagine if you were fully activated, all chakras on. Could you not make a difference that would echo across this world? Indeed, you witness it now before you. This is my first move, and I believe that I have gone straight through the demons to get to you. Walk through hell and fire to speak to you like this right now. The world is in a desperate need of anyone who will have the courage and take the time to see that their talents may be used here. Find out how they can use it to rescue more from the fate of the future. We are in Malkuth, the kingdom. Ancient law states that this dimension to be lower than the higher 9 steps on the tree. One must consider the inverted tree, which has also been created and indeed functioning, is the demon world. Below us extends 10 map dimensions. The abyss remains uncharted. We stand at the precipice. It's not a question of if anymore, it's a question of when. This is the point also in religion, where the confusion of adding terms like Nazi, Garibu, in addition to what those terms mean according to whatever rabbi. Entirely different analysis from Kiefer or Illumined Shakti, all these things. Let us not forget other rabbis who are in mythical death, some hidden 11, Seraph, blah, 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 ancient names, blah, 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 blah. See that this is what religion has done to something that is pretty darn plain and simple. Live human, uphold your race, not your skin color, and your kind, and with all your strength, and in it you will learn to ascend continuously. This is the great reward that eludes kings and rests in the hands of the slaves, who we disguise for such a test to men and women. They know at last will come first. Say it isn't so. The Most High can make a cripple climb a tree. A final warning has been set upon the chariot and rode through the land day and night. Ancient books have been sealed. I could open them no longer, lest I become infested again with the horror spoken with whispering in my mind, night and day continuously. But I had to know. A new message spoken to me. I wrote it down. As I wrote it, the words began to disappear off the page, and the voice said, "Do not write that which is for those who will escape the great test that shall come upon man, woman, beast, and jinn. I have placed this before them as a mirror, that they may see who they are inside and cease from pretending that they have vanquished darkness, but in reality have nursed and suckled it. Now it shall rear up and devour, though there is no honor amongst the wicked." Reason 163. And you can see the pictures. This is a symbol of Thule, of course, bringing us right to the serpents as usual. The meditation room has been placed inside the UN. Many world leaders visit this room before they make decisions. The room is shaped like a trapezoid, a pyramid with no capstone. The lighting is recessive, so as you go away from the mural, it's weird. The mural is clearly Saturnian, as you see the scythe of Saturn, along with the staff and the serpent twining around it. The stone has been removed from their sacred mountain, placed inside the room for its frequency, of course. Many of the dark-siders are seeking revenge for what happened during the Inquisition. They're releasing this anger upon the masses and feel no resource here, no compassion for us. Dag Hammarskjöld, believe it or not, Secretary General of the UN, placed the Black Stone of Light in the United Nations in 1953. It was a 6.5-ton block of programmed iron ore. It is polished on the top, such as it brings forth a sheet of minute lights that shine like a billion of tiny stars. It is a natural magnet, emitting waves and waves of energy. This is the foundation of the new world. In Stanley Kubrick's film 2001: Space Odyssey, the main character of the story, David Bowman, discovers such a stone serves as a space portal leading to the distant part of the universe. In the movie, it is placed on Earth from the stars, brings technology, enlightenment to an otherwise ape tribe who live at the dawn of true humanity, also brings violence. Reason 164. Thule is not the run-of-the-mill cut. They have perfected channeling, astral travel, evocation, and as you see, they are willing servants of the unseen hand. Our greatest ability as humans is to create our destiny. There is no predetermined future for us, no matter how much someone tries to tell you so.
Music.
Okay. Guys, I am going to continue this on Turtle Island News. We're almost done. And I'll send you the rest of it.
Thank you, love.
Okay. So I am saying goodbye to Wolfspirit Radio and Flagship Radio. And I am going to continue just for us, and I will send this over to everyone else. Okay. So, they have perfected channeling, astral travel, evocation. Our greatest ability as humans is to create our destiny. I do not believe that we are here because we have to do a specific thing. I believe some of us have made certain deals, seen what it was going to be like, and decided. But we do not have to stick to the program. If you were moving forward, what you will achieve next is based on you. It cannot be recorded until you make the actual decision. This is supreme knowledge. Our individual worlds are set in motion by a series of our own thoughts, our own choices. This cycle delivers our expectancies at various times, depending on how powerful our thoughts are. For example, a person can concentrate on getting a new job and still take a year to get one. This is due to the amount of energy they carry that manifests thoughts. Person fully alkalized, breathing properly with a clear line, can think, I want a new job, get fired at that moment, and begin a chain reaction. We can control our reality. What we focus on begins to take its steps in our world. Many begin to unlock this power. They are surprised that things come out of thin air. Then begins that training, thinking things fully through in detail for optimal results. In addition, learning how not to think about things when they manifest will actually hinder you, thus creating your worst nightmares. This is a fail-safe, so the type of thing doesn't happen. You would be powerless and frightened all the time, because fear of the elite having released secrets of power are the results here. Many people would immediately use their power to make themselves rich, have lots of lovers, be irresistibly beautiful. If everyone had the power to create their own reality, within this reality, there would be not enough metal for all the new cars that they would have, enough plastic for all the gadgets they would have, enough water for the pools, and the waste of water would go on and on and on. One should ask for knowledge and wisdom and understand that you can decipher anything. Knowledge is all information, non-partial. Wisdom is the ability to sort through the information, find a perfect calibration for your life. Understanding, coming to terms with why all things happen, and thus you escape duality. Duality is always and will always exist in this dimension. I'm sorry. Some may ask, well, am I representing duality here? And since I'm clearly challenging the gods and the devils, both, I would say yes, this is duality. This takes place when you reach back from higher dimension to binary worlds. The creation of the strong will always be to protect the weak, just as the house built of stone will securely shelter its fleshy inhabitants. We should never shrink away from what is right, no matter how enlightened we become. In certain meditations, you can get so high on yourself that you actually forget about other people. You don't even know your name or even who you are. But when you come back in this primary reality, thus the Most High placed us here for a reason. I know my reason. I've given our listeners now several reasons to determine their own. This is only to give you a fuller life of meaning rather than a redundant cycle of time where humans are harvested for energy and go about feeding and fearing and fornicating until they persist and perish back into atoms. The system which exit has its self-certain secrets, secretions that allow it to carry on as such. We call them the rules of the Matrix, in which some can be bent and others can be broken. This also the secret to the MEs. The one of those MEs is called the Tablet of Destiny and remains in the possession of the elite. It is said that whoever had it could control many things. The MEs were the names, relics, even spirits of power. Amongst all the gods, stories it describes a plot by the female goddess Inanna to attain the Tablet of Destiny from the gods by cunning. I'm going to take a short break, guys. Take a little drink. I'll be right back. Sorry, everybody. My computer's decided it wants to do a cleanup right now, but we're almost finished, so we'll plug our way through. Now, the MEs, matrix elements, whatever the heck these things are, angels, beings, they are or were the names, the relics, even the spirits that we have given our power to. You know what I mean? Amongst all the God stories, it describes a plot by the female goddess Inanna to obtain the Tablet of Destiny from the gods by cunning. One story says she steals it from Thoth. Now, in the society of the Anunnaki, the female of the breed were not allowed to rule. Without taking you through the whole story here, which can be found in any of the false writings of Sitchin, suffice to say that one female of their species gained control of the tablets. And again, this is from Theosophy Society. Good, I can finally say it. Blavatsky's work, all that breed. Isis, in legend, slips a serpent on Ra to poison him, and he cannot cure himself. Isis then makes Ra promise to give her his true creative name, in this case the actual spirit of Ba, the Ba of Ra. Ra agrees and Isis cures him, then the power is transferred to her bosom. This is why later we hear Cleopatra gets bit by a serpent on her breast. It's the transferring of that story. Now, this Ba spirit has been placed in a stone called the Stone of Scone. The Queen of England sits upon it as if it's an egg waiting to hatch. In fact, it has been referred to as the Ben Ben stone, named after the Bennu bird that was in the legend, the Ba spirit of Ra, Marduk. See how these stories just get recycled, right? The relic, along with many others, are in the possession of the Queen of England, who rules just about the whole world. Now, if you've been listening to me for a while, you will hear that either the real stone is in Winnipeg or she sent a replica of that stone, which means she is no longer sitting on it. I've heard other stories that it's in Scotland as well. I think the important is it is a stone with power. The power is given to it because we believe in it. This relic, along with many others, whether or not, no matter who possesses them. In secret societies, religious circles, various types of worship and sacrifice take place that continue to give these relics power. Winnipeg is one of the places where there's a lot of women go missing. This is how one group can rule such a vast amount of people. It is done through vices, that they implore and make people pray to, worship, and become victims of. They are kept by the rulers who know how to extract the power from these devices and use it continuously to raise themselves over other people. Reason 165, the Ben stone is supposed to rest underneath the coronation chair where all the royal bloodlines have been crowned, king or queen. If it was taken to Winnipeg, because it says that's what it is, and I touched it, that means she is keeping it from her future generations. Well, we know that these people are more bloodthirsty from their own than they are from, their hatred of us is only compared to their love of power, which they don't care about family. This stone was also carried by Tamar from Israel to Europe when the bloodlines began to mix, ultimately reserved for the highest rank. Dark initiate of the Leonicites, the lion's penis basically, the Fanak, or penis of the dragon, equated to Mithras, the plains, the Arams, Zoroastrian societies too, or the Zoroastrian devil, as all as one God, basically, according to Morpheus, which I have still chained down and hacked to pieces. There would be one Zeus, one Hades underworld, one Sun, one Dionysus. This Saturn, also called Zorvan, Mithras Helios, the nocturnal sun beneath the earth, voyaging around the invisible world. Doubt it not. According to the rites of Mithras, which is Christian Gnosticism, not written but divined, the beginning of all things was the law which proclaimed Christ, and the Holy Spirit existed at the creation. The brazen serpent was a symbol of Christ. Abraham was a type of father, or type of God the Father. Isaac, a symbol of Christ, the Ram of sacrifice. Eve slew mankind, but the Virgin Mary gave them life. Mary was the door, and that it was closed symbolized her virginity, which was the God's seal upon her. She was the burning bush described by Moses. Also, the censer used by the high Cohen. The coals were Christ. The perfume of incense was its perfume of myrrh, of the martyr, on which prayer ascended all the way to heaven. The chains of the censer were Jacob's ladder. Aaron's rod was Mary, and the bud thereof was Christ. The ark made by Moses was the abode of God on earth. It symbolized Mary, and the indestructible wood of which it was made symbolized indestructible Christ, who will rise every time he is crucified. The pot that held the manna was Mary, the manna inside the body of Christ. The words of the law were also Christ. The pearl in Mary's body was the Christ. The rock smitten by Moses was Christ. Moses smote it alongside, breathwise, to symbolize the cross. Moses' rod was the cross. The water that flowed from the rock was teaching of the apostles. The darkness brought upon Egypt for 3 days symbolized the darkness of the crucifixion. The Amalekites symbolized the devils. Aaron and Hor held up Moses' hand, symbolized the 2 thieves who were crucified with Christ. Thus the entire Bible feeds from one story placed in several allegories and parables. I bore of the riddler, who does nothing more than confuse what is simple. A man develops the fertilizer, while a woman makes the egg. Many never sit and think how mystical this is, that an actual egg inside a woman's body at various stages. Now we get to the meat of things. The adepts know that when a woman is due to bring forth a special child, the fertilized egg itself contains the child before it hatches. The period of incubation that takes place before it cracks open is called ruling the egg. How many remember the tale of the goose who laid the golden egg? Of course that tale has a hidden meaning, like all of the stories, and there are many that creation started with an egg. Of course it did. It always has. There is an egg that is about to hatch. Some already have. And inside those eggs are things I'm not even sure at leisure to discuss, since we have shined light on more than enough to keep one up thinking too long into the night. I will say that those who come from these eggs will be different than normal humans and possess abilities that they can unlock, but most do not use at this moment, and trust you will need them. You will see all this as a way used to give you a sense of urgency here. Reptiles lay eggs, thus they have to wait for the eggs to hatch. Some take longer than others, depending on what it is bringing forth. Reason 166. We can nor deny what has been placed in stone. The reptilian affiliation is pretty clear. And knowing all this, what will you choose now? What will you do? Reason 167. Unlike mammals, serpents and amphibians lay eggs. The incubation period of that egg is dependent on what type of creature lay in it. Some eggs stay in incubation for hundreds of years before they are ready to hatch. If you look closely at the picture of Mary above, you will see a silhouette of a dragon on the shawl covering her head and her hair. Gnostic Christianity is about bringing forth the seeds, or the eggs, to raise the brazen serpent for everyone to fall down and worship. And it appears the whole plan is happening right now. They only await the arrival of the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, the return of Q. We are looking for more ways to get this information across. Individual souls here are a myriad of fragments in self-realization. All of these cycles now are only dreamlike moments of time, divine consciousness that we call life. In all this knowledge, I've also discovered ways to enhance our bodies, open our pure portals. It cannot be done with only one person. Needs infrastructure, such as a facility, certain devices that can change consistency of air and temperature we breathe. If you seriously entertain this project, talk to me and we can work on this together. Individual consciousness goes beyond this duality of subject and object and is subsumed in a timeless and blissful divine consciousness independent of time and space, causality, which will melt away after illusion is destroyed and the matrix is broken. Indeed, it can be good at this point to keep our eyes open. The field is plentiful and the harvest ripe. Intelligent minds are waiting for counsel. This should be granted to them, so share this knowledge and pass this along. Please tell people to come and listen and hear, and maybe their hearts will open for the first time in their lives. You must first know what you were before in order for you to calculate what you desire to be next. I would only suggest addition. We do not like subtraction. That will decrease our ranks. We do not divide because we will never suffer or conquer again. We will not multiply into an unexpected stage which is premature. Addition is true, and the only math for us that are intelligent and wise. Did I ever fail in bringing forth profound truths beyond fear or emotion? Nay, I shall never fail to arise to the noble cause, bringing the most precious elixir of rare existence to all corners of the earth, if you knew but its true value. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. You've been listening to the last and final part of the Code of the Matrix.